Insolvency is that the sum of the debtor's debts exceeds the sum of the value of the assets. Now, that should be a fairly straightforward thing to apply. Just add up the debts, add up the value of the assets. If debts exceed assets, the debtor's insolvent. There's a problem, though. How do you value the assets? Some things are pretty straightforward. You have a house, you just bring in an appraiser who does an appraisal and says, well, this house is worth $600,000. Okay, well, that settles that. Other things can be a little bit tricky, especially if there isn't a robust market for them. So sometimes what a trustee will have to do is hire a forensic accountant to take a look at what the assets are, what the liabilities are, because if, let's say, we're dealing with a business with a fairly complex set of books, then it might not be so easy to come up with a valuation. But ultimately what it boils down to is we got to have the sum of the value of the values of the assets compared to the sum of all of the debts. And if debts exceed assets, that's typically the standard that we use. Though, as I said earlier, occasionally you'll see a slightly different definition because a debtor can conceivably be insolvent based on that definition, but is still able to service debts as they come due. But generally it's going to be debts minus assets or assets minus debts, and come up with whichever is larger. And if the debts exceed the assets, the debtor is insolvent.